Lentils and ginger beers, boys and girls, welcome back to 40k 9th edition, and welcome to the planet known as Hades. Specifically, we're in the equatorial deserts of Hades today because, well, a few nights ago, the inhabitants of this farmhouse out here in the desert saw some strange lights in the sky. They saw some, what looked like meteors or falling stars coming down from the heavens, and some very distant explosions, and then nothing. All very confusing, but a few days later, there have been great dust clouds gathering in the desert over the horizon, and more explosions, and gunfire, and the sounds of war this way cometh. For the first time in a very long time, the sands of this place are to be walked by alien invaders from outer space. The Orcs are here. Unbeknownst to the primitive people of this world, a battle has been going on in orbit, as the Sons of Hades, my custom Space Marine chapter, have been defending this place, their homeworld, from an invading Orc attack moon. Well, not an attack moon. I think they call them Rocks. R-O-K-K, because Orc spelling. Big, massive asteroid arrives in orbit, pops out of the warp, and crashes into nearby planets. Orcs get everywhere. It's all a bit of a mess, I'm afraid. And unfortunately, that's what's happened here in the Hades system. An Orc rock is emerged from warp space. The Space Marines have engaged it in orbit with their small reserve fleet they have back here at the homeworld, broken it up into as many fragments as they can, and some of those fragments have actually managed to make it through the atmosphere and down to the planet. And Orcs, being the resilient little buggers that they are, have clambered out of the wreckage and are starting to spread across the surface. And this needs to be contained and needs to be dealt with as fast as humanly possible. Otherwise, they're going to have a real problem on their hands. Luckily for the Sons of Hades, they're used to dealing with issues on their homeworld, usually homegrown ones, but the Orcs are certainly no more dangerous than anything else you might find down on this very strange planet. And that's why a particular group of Space Marines, known as the Hearthguard, the 10th company of the chapter, are being deployed to this place here to hunt down a large group of Orcs that have broken off from the main blob of them, if you like, surrounding their crashed wreckage in the desert. Because the Marines need to surround all the Orc cells out here, eradicate them, blast this place with holy flame, and hope that the fungus spores don't come back. However, this is going to be a tall order because while up here on the desert floor, things are quite open and flat and you can see what you're doing, but unfortunately, Hades is home to a very large subterranean cave network that goes through a huge portion of the largest continent that we're on right here. You can see some of the cave entrances here, with skulls carved in them by ancient human societies that once dwelt in this place. And, yes, down beneath there, you can find all sorts of things. Ancient ruins, ancient human ruins, ancient alien ruins. There are subterranean communities of humans that live down there. Now, all sorts of dangers and pitfalls and nastiness waits in the darkness below. And if any of the Orcs get down there, well, you're going to have to go root them out. Hopefully, it won't come to that. But it presents an interesting battlefield for us to fight on today here, folks, as the Sons of Hades engage some marauding Orcs on their very own homeworld, both here above ground and in some of the tunnels below. As today, we're going to be doing a battle report using the, I forget what they're called, but some of the battle zone rules from January's White Dwarf. Because in the latest White Dwarf issues, GW have been putting loads of cool stuff in there regarding different types of battlefields you can fight on. Lots of fun narrative rules for different kinds of battlefields out there in the 41st millennium. And I've been really enjoying reading them. And I thought, hey, why don't we give one a try? Because I found one in there about like radioactive, really super hot deserts and stuff, and I thought, ooh, that sounds an awful lot like Hades, the homeworld of my Space Marines. I should do something with that. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be playing a very simple game. I've got the open war cards out here. The objective is War of Attrition. The deployment is a very simple, both sides line up on the long ends. And the objective of War of Attrition basically is to kill each other. At the end of the 5th battle round, the player with the highest total is the winner, even if their own army's been completely destroyed. Basically, you add up the power rating or points values of the models that you've killed, and the one who's killed the most wins. Because the Space Marines' objective here is simply to eradicate every single Orc. And the Orcs' objective is, as ever, to have a really good fight with them humies. So, pretty straightforward, really. I couldn't think of a way to make it work with actual objective markers and stuff because neither side's interested in anything like that. They just want to kill each other. And so that's what we're going to do. There's no twist with the open war cards today because the twist is going to come from the rules in my copy of White Dwarf over there on the table, which we'll get to in just a moment. But why don't we look at the armies first, and then we'll go over the mission in a bit more detail afterwards. So let's do that. Let's look at the armies, starting with the Space Marines. Oh, minor point. It's a totally minor point that, definitely I shouldn't have mentioned like really quickly right at the start. But this will be a solo battle report because we're still in super tough lockdown here in the UK. We'll be for a little while longer, which is why previously I did do a solo battle report where I played 2 of my own armies against each other. And people seemed to really like it and said I should do more. So here we go. Here's another one. If you don't want to watch a battle report where it's just some bloke talking to himself in a room playing against himself, I understand, because that's a little bit weird, really. But people seem to like it, so that's why I'm doing it. I do have plenty of other battle reports on my channel where I'm playing against my friends. I invite you to check those out instead, if this isn't your thing. But if it is interesting to you, then do stick around, please. It's also going to be a narrative play game, so I will be playing the armies. I've built 2 very narrative lists. I'll be playing them in a very narrative, role-played way. There also will be a few little house rules here and there which we'll get to as we play through the game, but it'll be stuff like I won't use any command point rerolls because I want the game to be as random as possible, considering I'm not playing against a human opponent, I'm playing against myself. So I want the dice to be as random as possible and make the scenarios unpredictable as possible, ultimately. But we'll get into all the other things later. Anyway, let's actually go look at the armies now. Well, ladies and gents, behold the proud sons of Hades, successors of the Imperial Fist Space Marine Legion, and native to the planet of Hades upon which we stand at the moment. And this is the force that we will be engaging the Foul Xenos with today. This is just shy of 1,000 points of Space Marines. It's going to be an incursion level battle we're doing today, so I think we start with 6 command points if I recall. Don't quote me on that though, still a little bit new at this actually. I've mostly played combat patrol games up until now, so regardless, however, here we have them a purely infantry army, and there is a very important reason for that. Now I'm about to get deep into some narrative lore stuff here, so if you don't much care for that, the short version is Lieutenant, 2 squads of intercessors, 1 squad of Stern Guard veterans, 2 squads of scouts, 1 squad of eliminators, job's done. The long version is that these guys are members of the 10th Company of the Sons of Hades. Now the 10th Company are quite special because in most Codex adherent Space Marine chapters, the 10th Company is the Scout Company. However, the Sons of Hades are a bit different. They run a system that deviates from the Codex Astartes quite a bit. They run a system that is modeled a bit more, well, it'd probably be more similar to something like the Black Templars. Not in terms of like squad structure and stuff, but in terms of the way they organize their companies as self-sufficient units, as opposed to battle companies which are then reinforced by reserve companies and stuff. So every company has its own suits of Terminator armor, its own veteran squads, its own scouts, and so on and so forth. However, the 10th Company are a bit of a weird exception. These guys are called the Hearthguard, and as the name might suggest, their primary job basically is to garrison the homeworld, which means they have a somewhat limited supply of special weapons and vehicles and other heavy equipment. And their ranks are composed almost entirely of the newest recruits. So that will be neophytes, as in actual scouts who aren't yet full Space Marines, obviously, but also newly initiated battle brothers like these intercessors here that have yet to really prove themselves, because when you're a son of Hades, the way it works is you go through the training, go through the process of becoming a Space Marine by serving in the Scouts, and eventually you get all the extra organs and stuff implanted into you and you become a full-on Space Marine, you get your suit of power armor, and then what happens is you get sent to the Hearthguard, and you have to serve here for a certain number of years as part of your first tour, and your job basically is to guard the homeworld and deal with the various problems that are common to the homeworld of Hades. Because this is a very ancient world, dotted with lots of ancient ruins and ancient societies and cultures from which the Space Marines do recruit, this place is dangerous. There's lots of weird alien creatures that live out in this world, in the deserts and in the mountains, that they have to protect the local population from. There's also weird Dark Age of technology machines that live under the surface, beneath the sands, that sometimes occasionally wake up and start running around, going on a rampage, which also have to be put out of commission by the Space Marines. So garrison duty might sound pretty boring, but actually on Hades it's a full-time job. You're always running around trying to deal with some sort of strange monstrosity that's out murdering the local population. So these guys have seen plenty of action, and dealing with a whole bunch of rowdy orcs, well, you know, let's... might be a little easier than some of the stuff they usually have to deal with. So here they are, the Hearthguard, led today by a single lieutenant. There is a captain of the Hearthguard. He's currently elsewhere, along with the chaplain for the company as well. And what we have basically in the Hearthguard is, as I said, largely new recruits, like all of these intercessors you see here in the Scouts, and also some veterans that have basically become too old or too injured to be considered for frontline fighting duty. And there's not necessarily a huge number of these guys, but after you get a bit old and long in the tooth enough, you get sent back to be in the Hearthguard and help train the next generation of recruits of Space Marines. And so that's why we have a single unit here of Sternguard veterans. These guys have been around the block so many times right now that they're actually more valuable to the Revenants back at home, training the next generation and guiding them, rather than out trying to get themselves killed on the front lines. So that's why we have a unit of Sternguard here. They've all got their custom special issue bolt guns. There are a couple of dudes with heavy bolters in here as well. And we do have a sergeant who, you know, half his face is missing because, you know, he's been around a while. He's got a power sword and he's got a plasma pistol, and that's those guys. We do have the two scout squads. Each one is led by a sergeant with a shotgun, and each one has a heavy bolter. We have a squad of Eliminators who, along with the scouts, these three units here, these guys will have been out here ranging across the desert looking for the Orcs in the first place. So these guys have been out here a while. These two units of scouts led by three veteran Eliminators out here searching for the foul, dirty Xenos. They located them, and that's when this lot have all jumped in and dropped in via a Thunderhawk, I imagine, which has since dusted off and left. We also have, as our two sort of core troops choices here, we have two squads of bog basic intercessors with the normal intercessor bolt rifles, and we have one sergeant there who's just got a bolt rifle, and we have one sergeant here who's got a hand flamer and a chainsword. So that's really all there is to say there. These guys probably will be combat squadding, I suppose I should mention, so they'll be splitting into two squads of 5 each, instead of sticking together as one big blob of 10, but that's my plan at the moment. That might change depending on the situation. The Astartes are pretty flexible after all. And as for the lieutenant himself here, I could give him a relic, but as a lieutenant of the Hearthguard, this guy, he'll be a dude who has been selected from among the new recruits. This guy's not a veteran. He'll be a guy who's been selected from among all the new recruits, and basically he's been groomed for command in one of the main companies later on. And so today, obviously, he'll be looking to prove himself. And I feel like giving him a relic of some sort wouldn't really be quite fitting for a new guy. I don't think he's really earned a relic, so he's not going to have a relic. from the Codex. He is going to have an Imperial Fist Warlord trait, though, because these guys are successors of the Imperial Fists. They're sons of Rogel Dawn. And his Warlord trait is going to be... No, Stubborn Heroism. I thought I'd have to look it up then, but I've just remembered it's called Stubborn Heroism. It's one from the Imperial Fists Index, I believe, that I think I'm allowed to take. The way the index interacts with the new codex makes my brain hurt, frankly. So I'm just gonna... Battlescribe says I can do it, basically, and if Battlescribe says I can do it, I'm going to assume I can, even though I know that's not always true, but it's hardly going to be game-breaking if it's not technically allowed, so solid. So he's got Stubborn Heroism, and basically what that does is he cannot fall back from combat, ever. This is classic, like, Imperial Fist stuff. This is why I like this Warlord trait. It's really Imperial Fistish. He cannot fall back from combat. It's not allowed. He refuses to yield an inch to the filthy Xenos. However, anytime someone attacks him, he takes half damage to make up for that. So that's pretty fun. That's kind of cool. So that's a fun little Warlord trait. That's what he's rolling with. They're also got custom chapter tactics, these chaps. They are Imperial Fist successors, as I said, but they have their own kind of way of doing things that has emerged over the years that is similar to the overall Imperial Fist philosophy of old, but they don't quite use the exact same Imperial Fist rules. So their two custom chapter tactics that they have are, I want to say Bolt of Discipline, but that's not what it's called at all. That's a completely different rule. Indomitable is one of them. Indomitable basically means that they're really stubborn and brave, and they won't retreat even when it might be sensible to do so. And the long and short of that is, every time they take a combat attrition test, it is automatically passed. So, in layman's terms, every time you take a morale test for these guys, they will only ever lose one dude. It's a bit like how Dark Angels used to be. They're basically too stubborn to run away and retreat and make a tactical withdrawal, so anytime they fail a morale test, you remove the one dude as per usual, and then nobody else will flee. You don't even roll the attrition test. It is just considered to be passed, which I think is quite fun. And the other one they've got that I thought was called Bolt of Discipline, but isn't, it's not Bolt of Drill either. That's a different one too. It's something along those lines, though. It's Bolt of something. Basically, they're allowed to re-roll hit rolls of 1 with all bolt weapons when shooting at range. And that's it, basically, because the Imperial Fists are renowned for their bolt of drill, and that martial tradition has carried down to many of their successors, these guys included. So they will be re-rolling ones to hit with their bolt weapons, and probably a good thing too, really, because, I mean, the entire army is equipped with bolt weapons today. Well, I mean, even those sniper rifles I think are technically bolt sniper rifles. I'll have to check whether you're allowed to re-roll with those things. Because, as I said, the Hearthguard don't have a lot of heavy equipment, really. And the Orcs don't have a huge amount of heavy equipment either, having just crawled out of the wreckage of their crashed spaceship asteroid thing. So, you know, luckily, heavy anti-tank weaponry won't really be required today. So everyone's got bolt guns, heavy bolters, and variations on the above. So, yeah, that chapter tactic might actually serve them quite well today. So, there you go, that's the list. That's the narrative behind it. It's the Hearthguard, it's the 10th Company, which means lots and lots of infantrymen with basic small arms and no fancy bells and whistles, with the possible exception of these Eliminators, who are probably the fanciest thing in the entire army, and they're really just a trio of dudes with sniper rifles. So, okay. With that out of the way, folks, let's go look at Orcs. Alright, ladies and gents, I mean, kitchen knobs, it's the Orcs. Here they are, ladies and gents. So, this is the mob of boys that's come here to this place today, looking for a fight. And they shall get one, that's for sure. They've been led by a war boss at the back here. He has a big claw. He has a relic claw, in fact. He has the killer claw, which is like a big power claw, but better. And he's got an attack squig as well. His little purple squig there, little itty-bitty purple people eater. And he's got a combi rocket launcher as well. And he can shoot the shooty bit, or he can shoot the rocket bit, or he can shoot both of them at the same time. And because he's an orc, he'll probably shoot both of them at the same time. He's accompanied by Painboy, who's come down here to the front lines because he wants to fix all of the the dead and dying Orcs, because this is where all the interesting injuries happen. He doesn't want to be back at the wreckage of the ship or anything like that. He wants to be out here where all the killing's going on, so he can stick his Erty syringe in some beakies over there, and also try and fix up, I mean, definitely not experiment on some of the boys here when they go down. Yeah, no, we wouldn't do anything like that, like chop out their brain and give them a squig one instead, just for fun. Oh no. Anyway, we've also got some bikers. Bikers are probably about the only vehicles that survived the crash, and there's a bunch of bikers here charging forward towards the Armies, looking for a fight. Whole bunch of war bikers led by a boss knob who's got a claw. Lovely jubbly. We got a mob of boys. Shooter boys. Don't use shooter boys very often, actually, I have to admit. This is my first time, possibly ever, at least, well, not ever. My first time since returning to the hobby in 8th edition that I've actually used shooter boys. But we got some shooter boys. Got 2 big shooters in the mob, and they don't actually have a boss knob. I like to think that this guy's in charge here, the one with the big horned helmet. But you actually can't have a boss knob who's just got a shooter. So they don't officially have a boss knob. I guess they haven't quite figured out yet who's in charge, because they're all about the same size at the moment. Maybe the upcoming fight will figure that out for them. Over here on the right, we've got a gang of Storm Boys. The Death Company. That's what these guys are called. One of the freebooter gangs here today. I should mention that this isn't any one particular Orc clan. It's just a motley crew of freebooters we're looking at today. So I will be running them as freebooters. And the boss over here, he's got the freebooters warlord trait, which is killer reputation, which means that nearby Orcs within 6 inches of him can reroll hit rolls of 1 in the fight phase, which is kind of fun. But these guys are Storm Boys called the Death Company, for reasons that should be obvious, and if they're not obvious, I'm not sure if we really have time to explain. But anyway, they're Storm Boys. They are like Orc Boys, but they've got rockets and jump packs on their backs. They go really fast. They can go 12 inches normally, and they can advance like an automatic extra 6 inches on top of that if they want to. Although, if you do that, you have to roll a dice for every Orc in the unit, and any roll of a 1 means one of them crashed or he exploded and he dies. So that's pretty hilarious. But yeah, Storm Boys. 9 of them in this little mob, which is a bit of a strange number, I know, but it just happens to be the ones that I painted and converted. So I really need more Storm Boys than just 9, but I really wanted to get these on the table as well, though, because I'm really fond of these little kit backers I did for them, especially this guy here with all the stick bombs. I quite like him. He's called Reg, and he likes stick bombs. Me and Reg get along quite well, you know. Over here, because it's a gang of freebooters, it wouldn't be complete without some flash kits, led by a captain in the middle with his fancy boss pole bits on his back. And they've got big snaz guns, and they're the only Orcs in the army that have a ballistic skill 4+. Everything else hits on a 5+ or a 6+ or whatever. Flash kits are actually, they can shoot half straight as Orcs go, and those snaz guns of theirs are pretty nasty, actually. They're pretty mean. You could quite easily kill a bunch of Primaris Marines with those snaz guns, and that's exactly what they intend to do. It's going to be so good. I hope, anyway. Well, SorcererDave hopes there will be good, upstanding Space Marine Dave will kill the Xenos, of course, and will not suffer their nonsense. But SorcererDave really wants to kill some Armies with these snaz guns. This is a large mob of boys. I think it's about 30 of them. Yeah, I think it's 30 of them. Led by a boss knob with a big chopper and a stripy shirt. That's not really relevant to anything. He just happens to have a stripy shirt, but he has a big chopper as well. That's the main thing. He's got a big chopper. And everyone else has got sluggers and choppers in this squad, as you can quite plainly see. And that's the list, pretty much. They're all freebooters, so they have the the competitive freebooters mobs rule thing. I forget what it's called exactly, but basically each of the mobs in the army is competing with the other mobs and trying to outdo them. So basically what that means is if a unit in this army kills an enemy unit, then all friendly, well I say friendly, but you know, all other orc units within, I think, 24 inches of them, might be 12, I think it's 24, gets +1 to hit for the rest of that phase, I think. And it's a very silly rule, it's a very situational rule, but it's quite fun and very orky, because it encourages you to just crump things until they're dead. And then everyone around you gets a bonus, because, you know, they're like Legolas and Gimli trying to count kills, basically, you know, except nowhere near as friendly as those two. And yeah, so I freaking love freebooters. They're so much fun to play, even by Orc standards. And Orcs are pretty fun to play just as a general rule. So I'm gonna have so much fun with these guys today. Haha, Orcs, yes. I haven't played with these guys in ages. I've missed them. Anyway, that's the Orc army. I don't think there's anything else to mention. I've done the Warlord trait, I've done the Relic. Yeah. Again, not very many vehicles, just the bikes really, because they've all crawled out of a wrecked spaceship. And trundled on over here to the nearest group of beakies. Give them a good slapping. Oh yes. Well, speaking of giving beakies a good slapping, let's go ahead and have a look at the mission rules. Well, I'll tell you what, I will deploy, and then we'll have a look at the mission rules as well at the same time. Because this, like I said, we're using the White Dwarf rules today, so the mission rules are funky and weird and interesting, so I'll be back in a moment for that. Alright folks, the table has been laid. The battlefield is set for some war! The Orcs have deployed over here, and this kind of western, from their perspective, I guess, edge of the battlefield. We have a large mob of slugger boys over here next to this cave entrance, with possibly sneaky plans involving that cave entrance. We have the Warboss and his squig in between these two mobs, as well as the Pain Boy. We have the bikers deployed out in front, and behind them the shooter boys. And if we move over to the right here, amongst the rocks, benefiting from a cover save currently, as long as you're on these pebbles here, the Flash Kids, ready to lay down some fire. Although, at the moment, they're not quite in range of the Space Marines. I think they're probably hoping the Space Marines will come a bit further forward. And speaking of the Space Marines, well, the Eliminators, they're up here, on top of this rock. I like to think they've been here for a little while, actually, and they've been watching the Orcs incoming from their vantage point. The Scouts, both squads of them, are currently outflanking. They are deployed elsewhere at the moment, and they will be coming on from any old battlefield edge they feel like later in the battle to try and flank and get round the Orcs and ensure that none of them escape. And the rest of the force is over here, and that's the doorbell. It was a parcel, and not one for me either, so gutted. Anyway, I've been waiting for one, and it's still not here yet. I've been waiting ages. Not important right now, though. Here's the rest of the Marines. Speaking of the rest of the Sons of Hades, I did accidentally call them the Revenants in the chapter intro, in the video, in the army overview. My brain is going in some very strange directions today, apparently. In the army overview, I accidentally called them the Revenants, and that's what they used to be called, I've decided, back when they were a fleet-bound chapter, but as soon as they settled on the planet of Hades, that's when they became known as the Sons of Hades. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. Basically, they used to be called the Revenants, and then my viewers suggested we should call them the Sons of Hades instead, and I thought that was a much cooler name, so they're the Sons of Hades now. Basically. Anyway, they've deployed over here, quite far back, in a... I went for a slightly ancient Roman-inspired formation here. You've got... Everyone's combat squatted. Combat squatted? Maybe I should just stop. Come back, do this tomorrow instead. What is wrong? There's... The bit that connects my brain to my mouth, apparently, has been wired up incorrectly today. My goodness me. They've combat squadded, basically. The veterans have combat squadded. Everyone else has combat squadded as well. Low battery. Yes, I know. Go away. Lieutenants in the middle. I went for a Roman-style thing, by which I mean I put the new guys at the front and the veterans at the back. Because that feels very in character for a bunch of Imperial fists. or at least Imperial Fist wannabes. So that's what we've gone for here. Now, important thing to note, the cave entrances, they're not just for show. Let's have a little look at the actual scenario rules here, and by that I mean like the Warzone rules, or whatever we're calling them. Here we go, this is the Flashpoint, Charadon Warzone stuff they've been doing. This is January's White Dwarf. And the bit we're interested in here is the Dyrox Reach Desert Badlands. These are the rules we're using today. Now, it's got a bit here about mineral deposits, and this is basically some special aura abilities for objective markers. We're not using any objective markers in today's scenario, so we can safely skip that bit. What's important to us is over on this side. Cavernous Tunnel Network. So the short version of this is essentially to represent the labyrinthine network of caves that run underneath the desert of Hades. We have these cave entrances, these 3 cave tokens, if you like, that are also doubling as terrain pieces. Now, what you can do is if you move a unit wholly within 6 inches of one of these cave pieces, at the end of their movement phase, they can enter the cave network and they will be removed from the table. And then in the reinforcement step of your following turn, you can bring them back onto the table at one of the other cave entrances. You have to do so within 6 inches. You have to do so outside of engagement range of enemies. And when you do it, you can't charge on the turn that you emerge from the cave. However, it does allow you to cover an awful lot of ground relatively quickly by using the cave tunnels underneath the surface. And additionally, however, because the caves of Hades are a very dangerous place, full of lots of dangerous terrain, pitfalls, collapsing tunnels, as well as nasty monsters, that kind of thing. It's dangerous going down there. So what happens when we do bring a unit through one of these, when they come back out again, it's a bit like disembarking from a vehicle that's been destroyed. You roll the dice for every model in the unit, and on rolls of a 1, they take mortal wounds, basically to represent some of them that fell down into pits or got eaten by Gribblies underneath in the underground in the tunnels in the Underdark down there, and stuff like that. So you can do it. It's a risk. You might lose some of your guys in the process, but you can choose to use the cave network to travel around as well. Now the Revenants will be... I did it again, see? The Sons of Hades will be quite aware of this, being native to this planet, and the Orcs, well, they have that instinctive level of cunning, and they might have a go at trying to be very sneaky and cunning and come up behind those beakies when they don't expect it by going in a cave. Besides, there might be good loot in the cave, you never know. So some of the Orcs will be looking to travel through the caves as well if they can. Now, the next bit is Intolerable Heat. It's a desert after all. It's an irradiated, particularly nasty equatorial desert. It gets super hot here during the day. So, short version is we roll a dice and we see how hot the weather is currently. And at the beginning of each battle round, I think following the first, the player who's going first then rolls a dice and you determine whether or not the weather gets cooler or hotter. So over the course of the battle it might change, and you can go all the way from tolerable at the bottom with no effect all the way up to solar flare, where the worst thing you get is you subtract 2 from advance and charge rolls. Each time a ranged attack targets a unit, if the attacker is more than 6 inches away from that unit, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. And this goes right through the spectrum from Desert Heat up here, where the bonus, the penalty isn't too large, to solar flare where it's really nasty. So this of course requires us to roll a dice, so let's do it. Let's see how hot it is out here today. 5. It's pretty darn hot. So for battle round 1 at least, I'll read the small print in a second, but subtract 2 from advance and charge rolls, and each time a ranged attack targets a unit, if the attacker is more than 12 inches away from that unit, you subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. So the Orcs, it looks like are going to be, if they do any shooting in turn 1, which is not necessarily likely, they'll be hitting on 6s. Flash Kids will be hitting on 5s, and the Space Marines will be hitting on 4s. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so unbearable exposure is the heat level currently. And yeah, alright. Let's get this thing started, shall we? Let's have a roll off. and see who's going to go first. I've only got one dice to hand right now, so let's say this is the roll for the Space Marines. They have rolled a 5. The Orcs are going to need a 6 or a 5 to make us do it again. No, the Sons of Hades clearly are well prepared, know exactly what they're doing, and they have taken the initiative and will be going first, ladies and gentlemen. Join me in just a moment for Space Marines, turn 1. Okay, so I read the fine print of the mission, and we do actually have to roll for the first battle round as well. So since it's the Space Marines going first, I guess Space Marine Dave will be rolling, as opposed to Orc Dave. Not that it really makes a goddamn bit of difference, but hey. So, on a roll of a 1, the heat level will decrease. On a roll of a 2, it's a D3 roll, by the way, in case I probably should have said that first. So you roll a D3. On a 1, heat level decreases, it gets cooler. On a 2, it stays the same. On a 3, it gets hotter. And that'll mean we're having a solar flare if it gets hotter. Okay, so no, it just stays this weight, and that's a D3. So it does go down. It's no longer unbearable exposure. It's scorching temperatures. Subtract 2 from advanced rolls, 1 from charge rolls, and each time a ranged attack targets a unit of the attacker is more than 18 inches away from that unit, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. Okay, so scorching temperatures. When they set up here and initially drew up their battle lines, it was incredibly hot. Apparently, the temperatures dipped ever so slightly. Probably good news for the Space Marines, really, more than anything else. So, let's go ahead and jump into their movement phase. Okay, well, a speedy and somewhat unimaginative movement phase from the Sons of Hades. The sniper chaps, the Eliminators, that's what they're called. They've stayed exactly where they are, and they will probably stay up there for the rest of the game, assuming they aren't killed. Meanwhile, the battle line has pushed forward in good orderly fashion, up towards the centre, and additionally, this second combat squad of veterans has moved up to take up the rear here behind the lieutenant, and the first combat squad of Stern Guard veterans is heading for the caves. They're going to go in. They've now moved within 6 inches of the caves themselves, so they will now be removed. And they are making their way underground, unbeknownst to the Orcs right now, of course, but they will be attempting to navigate their way underground to exit the caves up here and try and take out those flash gits. That's their mission, basically. This veteran squad, their job is to infiltrate underground, get round behind the Orcs, take out the flash gits, because the flash gits are a problem with those big snaz guns of theirs, and our spotters up here will have identified that problem and relayed that information to the lieutenant down here, and so he's taking that into consideration. The plan is now afoot. As for the rest of them, they're forming a tight battle line, waiting for the incoming Orcs, basically to pepper them as much as they can with as many bolt rounds as they can as they come closer, giving ourselves a little bit of room here to fall back inevitably when we do need to, because that's the way it goes with Orcs. You let the green tide come to you, and then you shoot, you fight, you fall back, and so on and so forth. It's the way it goes. So, the scouts, obviously, they're still in reserve. They'll be coming in possibly next turn. We'll see. Oh, well, next battle round, anyway. And so now, let's go into the shooting phase. I don't know how much of it there will be. I'll have to measure up some ranges and stuff. Bearing in mind those intercessors do have 30 inches of range on those bolt rifles of theirs. The Stern Guard veterans at the back probably aren't in range of anything, though, except for the heavy bolter in the squad, admittedly. So that's a thing. Right. I did decide to split the 2 heavy bolters between each combat squad because that made the most sense to me. From a kind of military tactics standpoint, it's probably what they would do. Although I could have easily, I think, put both the heavy bolters into one of the little squads if I wanted to. Pretty sure nothing in the rules says you can't do that. But I decided to split them because that makes more sense to my brain. Right, let's do some shooty bang bangs. So this is the way the shooting's going to go down over here. These 4 squads at the front here are in range of enemies and will be shooting. These 2 are going to be shooting at those bikes at the front there. Try and get some wounds off those war bikers because they're kind of mean and nasty and they could be in our faces awfully quickly, you know. These 2 squads over here, on the other hand, they can't see much of what's going on over there. So for the moment, what they're going to do is lay down some suppressing fire, I guess, on those flash gits while veteran squad number 1 makes their way up to there through the caves. And that's it, with the exception of the Eliminators up here, and I haven't quite decided what to do with these guys yet, but I suspect what they might be doing is firing some hyper-frag rounds from their sniper rifles into one of the boys mobs over here to try and thin their numbers down a bit. So they could also take shots at the war boss or the pain boy if they wanted to, but at this stage I feel like it would be more important to the Marines to just try and thin out the herd as much as possible. They can worry about the war boss and the pain boy later when they become a bit more of a threat. They may not have necessarily identified them out of the huge mob just yet as well, so I think we're going to go for the hyper frag rounds, and I'll be honest, part of it is because I've never used them before. I want to see if they're any good, because of course they have the blast rule now, the hyper frag rounds, so yeah, could be interesting. We'll see. However, let's start over here first with these two squads. I think I might as well... Actually, no, I can't. Are you within 6 inches there, good sir? Where's my measuring stick? Yeah, they are. Okay, so these will be... All 4 at the front here will be re-rolling. In fact, everyone, except for the lieutenant on himself, will be re-rolling ones to wound. And because we'll be using bolt weapons, we'll be re-rolling ones to hit as well. It's like having a captain around for free. It's great. It's called Bolter Fusillades, by the way, that chapter tactic. I did look it up in the end. Bolter Fusillades, not to be confused with Bolter Discipline or Bolter Drill. Bolter Fusillades, everybody. Right. Let's take some pot shots of those bikes. Okay, it's the first shots of the game. Might as well roll them on camera, I suppose. We're going to do both of these squads at the same time. And bearing in mind, this will be -1 to hit because of the intolerable heat currently in the desert. The heat haze and everything going on. Additionally, rerolling 1s to hit because of bolter fusillades, and rerolling 1s to wound from the lieutenant. Hitting then on 4s. And rerolling any 1s? No 1s though. Okay, not a great start. It's quite a few 2s. And both those 3s miss as well, so only 3 hits out of those 2 squads. That's not great. Wounded on 5s as well because they're bikes. However, we do wound all 3 times. That's good. So this will be -1. AP -1, because we're not in the tactical doctrine phase yet, still in the Devastator, because it's the first turn. So let's go to... What save do Warbikers have? I have no idea now that I think about it. Alright, just check, they have a 4+ save. So this will be reduced to a 5+. Okay, 2 bikers make the save. A single biker loses just 1 wound. That, the Emperor is displeased. He expects better of you than that, I'm afraid. It was the same story over here for these other 2 squads. They have fired, not a lot of hits, not a lot of wounds against the flash kits. Flash kits have 2 5+ saves to make thanks to the AP -1 of those bolt rifles. 1 is made, 1 is failed. A flash kit takes a wound, because I believe flash kits definitely have more than 1 wound each. Okay, last but not least is the heavy bolter in this veteran squad. The rest of his chums are out of range with their special issue bolt guns. I believe they are anyway, pretty sure they are. However, the heavy bolter is not. Now, it'd be tempting here to use a Hellfire shell with the stratagem. However, I'm not going to because, well, 1, it's a good idea to preserve your command points, because there's a few really tasty stratagems that the Marines can use. I've not elected to use any of them just yet, but we'll just you wait and see. However, lore-wise, Hellfire rounds are supposed to be used exclusively against Tyranids. They use mutagenic acid that's specifically designed to screw up Tyranids. And you could probably make the argument that, sure, it probably also works on everything else too, though, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, actually. But bearing in mind, this is the Imperium, and they are very, very dogmatic when it comes to their weapons technology. So I'm electing not to use Hellfire rounds in this game because we're not fighting Tyranids. So, therefore, it'll be the usual 3 shots, -1 to hit, partly because of the range and also because he moved and he's firing a heavy weapon. In 8th edition, that would have been a -2 to hit cumulatively, but that's no longer the case in 9th edition. -1 is the worst you can get, and I see no reason to change that, because having been on the receiving end of things like -4 to hit Lord Discordant, even in friendly narrative games in 8th edition, I'm kind of glad that's been made a change. So, 3 hits, well, 3 shots hitting on 4s. Rerolling that 1 because it is a bolt weapon. Sadly, it does miss though. 2 hits. This is against the Warbikers, by the way. I probably should have mentioned that. And heavy bolters in 9th edition are a 2 damage weapon, so Could potentially kill a couple of bikers here. And, yeah, anyway, wounding on 4 pluses because it's strength 5. 1 wound. AP -1, so 1 5-up save for the bikers. Which is actually made. Wow. Wow. Gork and Mork is with them today, apparently. Maybe our fortunes will change as the battle unfolds, but that's a little bit underwhelming. Right, last but not least, the Eliminators, and I am indeed going to fire some hyper-frag rounds, I think, with those guys at... who can they see, is the question. Pretty much everything. I'm going to fire at the Slugger boys, I think. Try and get their numbers down a bit. Because they're getting dangerously close to that cave entrance over there, those Slugger boys, you may have noticed. It's almost as if they might be planning to go into those caves where they can't be shot at. So let's get a few shots into them, shall we? Alright, hyperfrag rounds from the Eliminators going into that big mob of boys at the back. Now, if I've understood the blast rules correctly, each of those hyperfrag rounds is heavy D3 number of shots. However, I think because they're shooting at such a big unit with the blast rules, it's an automatic 3 shots each. So, hitting, therefore, on 4s because of the heat haze. And I don't know if these are supposed to be bolt weapons. They do have bolt in the name of the weapon. So, yeah, I'll be charitable and reroll those. Okay, 1 extra hit. So, 3 hits in total. Not particularly fantastic. But that's the perils of fighting in the deep desert, eh? After all. Right, this is strength 5, so wounded on 3s. 2 wounds, no AP, so t-shirt saves for the Orcs. 1 of them's made, 1 of them is dead. We've killed 1 boy in this shooting phase. Okay. I was a little bit worried that the Orcs were going to get a pasting really early on, but I guess I was completely and utterly wrong, so I shall go and remove a boy from over there, and then, folks, it's the Orcs' turn to fight. It's gonna be good. Ladies and gents, it's the Orcs' movement phase, and this is what's happened. War boss, pain boy, shooter boys, move forward. They did advance, the shooter boys, but because of the intolerable heat, they only managed to advance 3 inches, even though they rolled a 5, which sucks for them, I guess. The bikers, on the other hand, no such problems. They've shot 14 inches straight forwards. They're well within dagger gun range of those Space Marine beaky boys. It's going to be good. I hope, anyway. The flash kits have shuffled a little bit forward, and as I was moving them forward, I realised that I've already made 1 rules mistake. Well, at least 1 rules mistake so far today, because I forgot that these guys were in cover, which would have cancelled out the -1 AP from their shooting. But their shooting was terrible anyway, so I don't think it really makes much difference. And the big mob of Slugger boys are being led by this Orc knob who's gone, "Oi lads, look, there's a cave over there, but it's cooler in there and there might be some loot. Come on, let's go." So they're heading in there, and they will wander their way through the caves at random, probably fighting whenever they find along the way down there, and eventually they'll probably emerge somewhere, most likely over there. So that's a problem the Space Marines are going to have to deal with. There's a large mob of boys making its way through the tunnels under the desert right now towards them. I'm going to remove them in just a moment. Probably with a dustpan and brush, because that's how many of them there are. That's a 30 strong mob of boys right there. That's not going to be fun having that pop up right in front of you. Anyway, brutal but cunning. That's the way. Sorry, Orc Dave's really taking over a bit too much at the moment. So, I've also used a stratagem. I know. The Orcs are being clever. They're being sneaky. I used the billowing exhaust cloud stratagem on the bikes at the beginning of the movement phase. And basically that means that there's so much smoke coming out of those bikes, it's a little bit difficult to see them. So basically any unit that wants to shoot at them in the following turn is going to have -1 to hit them, even though we're quite close to them now, and the heat haze effect probably wouldn't ordinarily take effect. They're going to have a -1 to hit them anyway now, because of all the smoke. So that takes care of just about everything. The psychic phase has been observed, though neither side actually has a psyker today. And now we'll head into the shooting phase, where, yeah, got a few options actually. I'll have to get rid of them sneaky boys up there. Them beakies on top of that rock. Shoot him! As well as these guys over here. I've measured up. These flash kits have shuffled forward and are now just about in range of these two squads over there, so nah. And yeah, and the Dakka guns on the bikes will be shooting something, and the Dakka guns are not bad, actually. They're quite good. I kind of didn't realise this until I looked up the rules properly for warbikers for the first time, that they're more of a shooting unit than a close combat unit, warbikers, with the exception of the knob with the power claw. So yeah, actual knob bikers with close combat weapons probably would be more fighty, but these guys are more about driving around and shooting stuff with very big, loud, rapid-firing guns, which, let's face it, is pretty orky in its own right. So, shooting phase, everybody! What do I want to start with? I think I'll start with the snaz guns on the flash kits down here. Right. Flash kits, shooting that squad on the end there, the ones on the furthest to the right. Gonna shoot with the captain first with his snaz gun because he's got a git finder squig, which means he hits, well, he gets +1 to hit. Now they're hitting on 5s because they moved and because of the heat haze. However, he'll now hit on a 4 because of the git finder squig. I'm also going to use another stratagem called more Dakka, which basically means the Orcs Dakka ability will now pop off on a 5 or a 6 instead of just a 6. Which means that basically rolls of 5 or a 6 mean that we roll extra to hit rolls. Because Dakka. So, the captain with his snaz gun first. 3 shots, 1 hit. Which is a Dakka, of course. So another hit to hit roll, which is a 4, sadly not enough in this particular case. So, 1 hit. And it does wound, because it's strength 6. And I believe this is AP -2. I'm just leaning over towards the codex to check. It is indeed AP -2, right. So, 5 up save for the Marines, the Intercessors, which they fail. And this is a damage 2 weapon, the snaz gun. So, 1 Intercessor is just kaput. Takes out a ruddy great shell in the face and goes down. So, good start for the Orcs, I suppose. Now, the rest of the flash kits, so the other 4, basically, also doing the same thing. Actually, no, hang on a minute. I rolled a 4 back there. And with the git finder squig, that should have been a... There was 1 more hit, which doesn't wound. So, okay, there you go. That's the dice gods punishing me for forgetting. All right, let's do the rest of those guys. Here we go. Let's see. Ooh. Lots of them. That's 6 hits that are also Dakkas. So, roll these again, basically. There's another, and there's another. Oh, yes. Here we go. Wounded on 3s. Oh, dear. That's not so good, is it? Oh, we'll take it. That's 3. 5 up saves for the Marines. They make 2, fail 1. Another Intercessor's head explodes unceremoniously. That was pretty good. Right, next up, something pretty simple. The war boss down there, he's going to fire his combi rocket launcher up at those sneaky beakies up there. And, yeah, he's going to fire both at the same time. So, that is going to be 1 rocket hitting on a... pretty sure a 5. It's rolled straight into the cave, but that is a 6. Okay, good. So that is a hit with the rocket, and the... Oh no, it'd be hitting on a 6 because he's firing both at the same time. But yeah, it's still a hit anyway. And it's actually a Dakka on that note. The other 2, you know, shooter bits miss, but Dakka on the rocket, which hits again! Oh my goodness me. It's bad luck today, Sons of Hades. Alright, so this will be strength 8, I believe. Yeah, I think it's strength 8. So, wounded on 2s. Okay, I need to look up the AP on a rocket launcher. Right, it's AP -2 and it's damage 3. So, yeah, each of these will kill an Eliminator if they if they fail, they're saved. Now, on the bright side for the Sons of Hades, the good news is, and I've just realised I forgot to put the measuring stick away, and that's going to really annoy me. Let's just keep that out of the shot, shall we? There we go. That's much more professional. Because they have those camo cloaks up there, they actually get +2 to their cover save instead of just +1 for being in cover up there. And I know that probably... I'm going to consider being up on the top of that rock as in cover, because they've got the high ground. That's got to count for something, right? Even though, you know, Games Workshop's official rules would probably treat it as an exposed position, but bollocks to that, I say. That's cover. So they basically ignore the AP on that rocket launcher, essentially. So they've got their normal 3+ saves against this, but still, if they do fail, dead dude. Yeah, they passed both times, so... Very frustrated war boss down there. He got a really good shot. He was about to start bragging to all the other boys around him. Did you see that? That was such a good shot. I'm the best. And then the smoke cleared and they were still standing. Oh dear. Right, well, with that taken care of, let's shoot all the shooters up at them as well. Warboss is annoyed now. He wants those guys dead. So, yeah, he's going to tell all the rest of the boys to start shooting them sneaky bakies. Alright, with a mighty battle cry, the whole mob points their dagger guns and... Well, they're not dagger guns. Them's got dagger guns, them's got shooters. The shooters and their big shooters up at those sneaky beakies and let rip. Now, I already rolled the big shooters, the 2 big shooters in the mob. They both failed. Rolled the rest of the shooters now, and I'm having to do this in 2 rounds, basically, because I don't have enough dice on me at the moment, so... This is after the first round, and a very jammy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 successful wounds. So 6 2+ saves on those Eliminators up there in their cover. Okay, 1 failed, so 1 of them takes a wound. And now, round 2. Here we go again. Okay, not bad. I'll come back to you with the saves. Alright, that is just another 3 more 2+ saves after the second round of Dakar, and the Eliminators successfully make it all. 1 of them has taken a flesh wound, and the rest of them are fine. Now, we're just going to move on to them bikes, and they're going to be shooting at some intercessors directly in front of them, because, frankly, what, bikes shooting up like that? No, nonsense, rubbish. They're going to shoot at the thing in front of them. Alright, here we go then. The war bikers are shooting with all their Dakar guns. Straight into that leftmost squad of intercessors right there. Here we go. Hitting on... Uh-oh. These are assault weapons. Dakar guns? Yes, I assume so. Alright, so they'll be hitting on their usual 5+. Because those Orcs, they definitely do hit on a 5+, right? Yeah, they do. Just checking the codex. It's over there. Anyway. Oh, that's pretty good, you know. So that is right off the bat. That's like 5 Dakars. I thought about using more Dakar on these guys instead of the flash kits, but I felt like the flash kits were a better choice, really, because their guns are just so much nastier, you know. So, okay, get rid of those. 4 more Dakars. This is why I do a lot of Orc shooting off camera instead of on camera. Alright, so that's 1 more. And these are all strength 5 of the Dakar guns. They're basically like a couple of big shooters strapped to the side of the bikes. So 3s to wound. Okay. By Orc standards, that's pretty bloody good. However, they will get their full 3-up save because there's no AP on this. 1 intercessor bites the dust. Well, that brings the Orc shooting phase swiftly to a close. And, well, yeah, not going to charge. I could try and charge the bikers into those Marines over there. Problem is, they won't, the chance of that actually being able to do it are pretty slim on account of, well, the Intolerable Heat. They have a -1 to their charge rolls, which means I think they'd need a 10 or an 11 to get in there, and that's a bit of a tall order, really. So I don't think we're going to bother. The bikers have moved swiftly forwards. They've gone Dakar, and they want to get another round of Dakaring in, I think, before they do consider trying to run something over. So that's the way we're going to do it for now. I'll just leave the morale phase. Now, that squad of intercessors over there with a sergeant in it did lose 1 guy, but they will pass that morale roll automatically because they can't fail it. This combat squad over here actually, though, lost 2 guys, and that one doesn't contain the sergeant. So they only have a leadership of 7. So let's roll that. That's 2 + 2, 4. Okay, so they've passed as well. It was a slim chance of failure, but there it is. And the Eliminators up there are fine as well, because they didn't actually lose anyone, did they? They just took a wound. I need to add the wound dice up there before I forget. Alright, that concludes Battle Round 1, ladies and gentlemen. So let's head now into Battle Round 2, as we flip over back to the Space Marines, and perhaps the Lieutenant's strategy will come to fruition as the other squad of Stern Guard veterans emerges from this cave to try and take out those flash kits, and quite potentially the outflanking scouts may also make an appearance. Could be interesting. They might have even got right behind the Orcs over here. We shall see. Of course, the Space Marines will have problems of their own to worry about. For one, a very large mob of boys making its way towards them in the tunnels, as well as a huge mob of storm boys that will be descending from the sky pretty soon as well. It does occur to me that I completely forgot to mention the storm boys in this game since deployment. But they're there. They're flying around in the sky at the moment. And they'll be heading down here to crump some Umis pretty soon. But yeah, they're there as well. I kind of forgot they were a thing. There was a bit of a break in recording between the army overviews and the deployments, so I kind of forgot they existed. But they're still there. Anyway. Professionalism. Yes. Alright. Battle Round 2. I tell a lie. It's not Battle Round 2 yet, because I forgot a couple of things. Right, two rule screw-ups actually that I've noticed since the last clip. One of which was the Pain Boy over there was in range last turn, the Space Marine turn, of that big bomb of boys when they lost a guy to the Hyperfrag rounds. So the Pain Boy could have healed that. So on a 6, the Pain Boy healed it, and that boy isn't dead. Right, he is still dead though. Additionally, the flash kits, they are gun crazy show-offs. So when they finish shooting, you roll a dice, and on a 6, they shoot again at the nearest enemy. No. Okay, that's a 5. But thought that was worth going back to check, because that could be quite significant after all. However, no. Alright, so I think that's everything. Now we really are on to Battle Round 2. Space Marines, turn 2. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Space Marines, turn 2. And first thing we need to do, really, I've done the movement phase, as you can probably tell, but I'm saving this for on camera. We also got to roll to see what happens to the temperature here in the desert. So it's D3. That's a 2. The temperature stays exactly as it is. It's still incredibly hot for the next battle round. Now, I've done the movement phase and the command phase, because I keep forgetting that the command phase is a thing now that happens before the movement phase. So, as you can see, the Space Marines' envelopment of the Orc forces is beginning to happen. This veteran squad has emerged from the caves here, ready to put some fire into those flash kits, and it has basically been decided by the Lieutenant that the flash kits are the biggest threat to his power-armoured troops on the battlefield at present, and they must be destroyed. The scouts, having worked their way right around the back of the Orc forces, have emerged back here, and basically all 3 units, and possibly this little squad of 3 intercessors here, are going to plunge a load of exploding bolt of fire into these flash kits and just wipe them out, because they need to be eliminated. Also, the rest of the main forces moved forward. Some of them are potentially going to be charging those bikers at the end of the turn, including potentially the Lieutenant, who's moved up as well. He's been covered at the moment by this veteran squad who at the moment are, well, they're stern guard literally being the stern guard, as in they're guarding the stern at the moment. Now, additionally, they will have at this point been getting pings on their auspex telling them that the Orcs are on their way here. There are blips coming from underground on their way up here, and it wouldn't have taken them long to figure out that the Orcs are coming through the caves, and they're probably going to emerge here at any moment. So what the Lieutenant has done is called in an Orbital Bombardment. So this costs 3 command points. This is why we're saving them up. And I put the token down there, so right on the top of that. And what's going to happen basically is he's moved all those guys out of harm's way. He's going to call in an Orbital Bombardment right down on top of this cave entrance at danger close range. And when the Orcs emerge next turn, according to this, I think they should be blown to smithereens. Using your command phase, you've dipped to society's warlord from your armies on the battlefield, so on and so on. Select one point on the battlefield, place the marker at the start of my next command phase. Right, yeah, so basically, the Orcs are going to come piling out of this. If I was feeling a bit cheeky as the Orc player, I would leave the Orcs in the cave. I don't even know if you can do that, though. Like, I checked the mission rules in White Dwarf, and it doesn't necessarily say whether or not you're allowed to keep them in the cave or you have to bring them out. But we're going to bring them out anyway, because the Orcs wouldn't know that there's an orbital bombardment coming in. So they're going to come piling out of the cave, and if any of them are caught within 6 inches of this marker here when they come out, which they almost certainly are going to be by the time we get around to my next command phase, because they're going to want to charge all these. In fact, actually, when they come out of this, they can't charge. They can only move within 6 inches of it in the next Orc turn, and then that's it. They can sort of pile out of the cave within 6 inches of it, and they can't even charge. So basically, yeah, they're going to be getting an orbital lance strike right down on their heads, essentially. And what that'll probably do is, if they're caught within 3 inches of it, which they probably will be, because there's an awful lot of them, they're going to take a bunch of mortal wounds. So normally, orbital bombardment is a kind of an area denial weapon. You plop it down, and it stops the enemy from entering that zone unless they want to take a bunch of mortal wounds. But in this particular case, narratively, I feel like it works. Lieutenant knows whole bunch of enemy contacts coming up from below through the caves, so he gets on the box, land strike comes down, and kablooey, just as the Orcs are making their way out, kablam. Perfect. Very narrative, at least for me anyway. So, unfortunately, there are so many Orcs coming up out of there that it probably won't make much of a difference. But, you know, I think it's cool. I think it's pretty cool. I really like the new Orbital Bombardment stratagem. It's way cooler than it used to be. The freebooters, actually, the Orc freebooters, they have their own version of that called Kill Cruiser Broadside, but it's rubbish compared to that. It's nowhere near as good. Anyway, yeah. That's everything, I think. Oh, I did realise there was another rules boo-boo earlier in the Space Marine turn when I shot my heavy bolter at those bikers. It should have been AP-2 and not AP-1 because the Devastator Doctrine was active. And that was the heavy weapon. So, whoops. Never mind. Might have killed a couple of bikers there, but oh well. It is what it is. Not going to go back and redo it now. It was a whole battle round ago. So, that's how things look, everybody. That's how things look. Let's head into the shooting phase. And I think we're going to start off over here with the first order of business being everybody shoot those flash kits. I'm going to start with these 3 intercessors over here because they really don't have many options in terms of who they shoot at right now on account of line of sight. So we're going to start with them shooting at flash kits. Well, folks, there is no kill like overkill, apparently, because these 3 intercessors opened fire, followed by these scouts, and between the 2 of them, they wiped out those flash kits, no problem, completely dead. That duff shooting in the first battle round has been more than made up for today, with just those 3 taking out 2 flash kits by themselves. The tactical doctrine is in effect as well, so we're getting an extra AP-1 to all of these weapons here. Incidentally, I discovered that in 9th edition now, scout shotguns, like the sergeant has there, they're 18-inch range assault 2 now instead of the weird rules they had before. And this is definitely an improvement, because shotguns are cool and they should be cool. Anyway, well, that means basically those flash kits are dead. And these veterans and that scout squad over there still have yet to fire. So I'll check what's in range. But I'll probably go with these veterans next, shooting probably that mob boys up there, if any of them are in range. Although far enough away at this point, though, I suspect that the 18-inch -1 will come into effect from the heat haze. So we'll give it a go. Alright, these veterans opened fire with all their weapons. And perhaps it was the heat haze. Perhaps it's just these guys are a little old. Got a few too many augmetics replacing their lost limbs. Remember, these are the old fogies, these guys, the Hearthguard, the old veterans who aren't, you know, able to serve in the battle companies anymore. But whatever it was, they totally whiffed. Didn't kill a single Orc boy. However, this squad of scouts down here, on the other hand, the new up-and-comers, these neophytes, had far more luck. They killed 3 Orc boys in this mob instead. with their bolt guns, the sergeant's shotgun, and that heavy bolter. Well done, gentlemen. The next generation apparently is in good hands. So, that brings us on to, I do believe, these Eliminators up here. And I think, actually, we did kill an extra one, but it was saved by the Pain Boy, because I actually remembered the Pain Boy's rule this time. Anyway, I think these Eliminators up here, they will have, certainly at this point, identified the War Boss. They're going to shoot the War Boss. All three of them are going to aim some mortis rounds at that War Boss and shoot him. So, alright, these guys get one shot each. And I noticed another rules flub I made as I was looking up the rules for the mortis rounds on the sniper rifles. Eliminators have a ballistic skill of 2+. I didn't know this. I thought they were 3+, because that's what they certainly used to be. But that'll teach me not to read the fine print, I suppose. So yeah, they hit on a 2+, those guys, and not a 3+, the old Eliminators. So, one shot each, strength 5, -2, damage 2. A bit like a snaz gun, funnily enough, actually, really. Very similar profile. And also, wound rolls of 6 will inflict a mortal wound in addition to any other damage. All of them zeroing in on that War Boss's noggin. Let's do this. Hitting on 2s. Now, we did establish earlier that these are going to count as bolt weapons for today, for the purposes of bolt fusillades, so... Yep, that is 3 hits. Strength 5, so... I don't think War Boss is a toughness 5. If I roll a 4, we'll find out. Okay, no, that is... Oh, okay. Alright, that is 3 mortal wounds. In addition to AP -2, so the War Boss has 3 6-up saves, which he makes none of, so that's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. Wow. Unless the Pain Boy can pull a miracle out of his arse right now, that is going to be one extremely dead War Boss. So, the Pain Boy confers upon him a 6-up ignore wounds, but he only ignores 1. That's a very dead War Boss. Kablooey! I mean, dead is subjective with Orcs. He might have had his head removed, but there's no reason the Pain Boy can't sew a new one on there later. But yes, that War Boss is kaput. He's out of the game. The Space Marines know that you're supposed to shoot the biggest Orc if you can. Then they're professionals, they know what they're doing. And they've done just that. Guess that makes the Pain Boy the de facto next in command now, because he's the second biggest Orc on the table. So, yeah, there you go. War Boss is dead. Well, we're barely halfway through the shooting phase, and already things are going very well indeed for the Space Marines. 1 dead War Boss, a bunch of dead Flash Gits, a few dead boys over there as well. Now we move over here to the big blob of troops in the middle, and I think most of them are going to be shooting the War Bikers, I do believe. This looks like it's... I mean, what we still have to take into account here is a couple of things. 1 is the Storm Boys on their way in. 2 is the huge mob of Slugger Boys on their way up from the caves. And there's a third thing too, which is the Orcs can very much still use the Endless Green Tide stratagem. So if one of their mobs does get knocked down to a few boys left, we can basically respawn them, remove them from the battlefield, and bring them on back again full strength. So that means the Marines are going to have potentially an extra 30 boys to kill if we do it with the Slugger Boy mob, for example. So it ain't over yet, but I have to admit it is going tremendously well for the Sons of Hades right now. I mean, they're on home turf. To be fair, they're on home turf, and they're dealing with a very small mob of boys right here, essentially. So I'm satisfied that this is narratively going the way I would have thought it would. But we'll see. There might be some surprises in store. I don't set up these narrative games to necessarily be super balanced. It's nice when they go down to the wire, but really we're just exploring the scenario and the story that unfolds within it. And if that story tends to favour one side or the other, that's just the way it is. So it's not like when I'm playing a game with another human opponent, if you know what I mean. Like another human opponent, as opposed to what, a dog opponent, a cat opponent? What? When I'm playing against another opponent and I want it to be a close game because it's more fun for both of us that way. This is just me playing against me, and I really don't care which way it turns out, so long as we have some fun along the way. So Anyway, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's shoot some more orcs. Let's kill a few more mushrooms, shall we? Let's see. I think... this little squad of intercessors we'll start with here, because they've got the hand flamer on the sergeant in that unit, and I've never used that hand flamer before on anything. I don't even know what the rules for the bloody thing are. I'm going to have to go check. Alright, just for novelty's sake, I'll do it on camera. A hand flamer is D6 auto hits for 5. It has 12-inch range, and obviously they're well within range at the moment. So that is 5 auto hits. It's only strength 3, however. Now that's interesting. I didn't know that, but there it is. They're only strength 3, so this will be a 5+ to wound. Ooh. Now, luckily, we have a lieutenant nearby who can potentially correct this problem. Not enough, though. Okay, so no wounds with the hand flamer. I'm now going to do the rest of the bolt guns and whatnot. In fact, this entire unit here, this squad, that rest of that squad, are all going to open fire on the warbikers, and I will return to you with the results. Well, with a withering, disciplined volley of bolt of fire from those bolt rifles, the bikers are cut down completely and utterly. Just wiped out to a man, right down to the last wound on the last bolt gun. It was scarily efficient. The tactical doctrine being active and getting an extra point of armor piercing on all these bolt rifles and the special issue bolt guns of the veterans at the back here was really what made that sing. Those poor bikers were reduced to a 6+ save, and it was brutal, absolutely brutal, and they're all dead. This is starting to look like it might be quite a short game, but it's not over just yet. That is actually the end of the shooting phase, and there won't be any charges either. Now, morale, I believe the orcs over there, those boys, will pass their morale because of mob rule. You know, there's so many of them still in that mob that I don't think they could possibly fail after losing only 3 boys. And there isn't any other morale to take because everything that might have taken morale is dead. The Hearthguard are being deadly efficient today, absolutely eradicating these orcs, as is their mission statement, really. They need to kill these orcs and torch the area to make sure the spores released by them when they die don't settle and create a new green skin problem on this planet. Whether or not they'll be successful in that, remains to be seen, but they're going to try their best at the very least. So, that was a brutal turn. Let's go over to Orc Dave. He still wants to fight. He's not running away. He wants to fight. Because we've got a whole bunch of boys about to emerge from that cave, for one thing. And some storm boys descending from the heavens. Somewhere. Not sure where. A lot of choices, actually. So, need to think. War Boss Dave needs to get his thinking cap on. Man, that poor War Boss over there, though. He doesn't have a head left to put a cap on, does he? Oh my goodness. I think you could probably see why normally when I run my warlord Zog, he's a war boss in mega armor with the super cyborg body, because that's how quickly an orc war boss can die if he doesn't have mega armor and a cyborg body. Yeah, they're really squishy. It makes me sad, honestly. I feel like war bosses should be scarier than that, but hey, it is what it is. Okay. Over to the orcs. Right. It's Orc Dave's turn and this is what's happened. Movement phase is over. Storm boys have arrived. They's gonna charge these weedy little scouts in the back. Them little tiny humies. With their squishy armour. Yeah, they're gonna jump in. They've landed in now and they're gonna pick on someone who's not their own size. Because that's an easy win. And orcs like an easy win sometimes. Meanwhile, the Pain Boy has ordered these shooter boys to turn around, you gits, there's behind us. So they've turned around, moved this way. They're going to unload a whole bunch of shooter gun fire into those scouts over there. Meanwhile, of course, over here at this cave entrance, the huge mob of boys, led by that ugly big knob with the stripy shirt, have emerged from the cave. Very close to the Space Marines indeed. They can do that when emerging from the cave. They just need to stay out of engagement range, which is basically close combat range, which they just about are. They can't charge this turn. As sad as that makes me, they can't charge this turn because that would have been glorious. Part of me is tempted to just house rule it and say, sod it, we're gonna charge. But, no. However, they do have an awful lot of sluggers. And I think I'm going to use Daka. Or, no, sorry, more Daka, that's the one. That's the name of the stratagem. I'm going to use more Daka so we can get the most out of those sluggers and actually just really try and wipe out a unit of Marines over here. Maybe those veterans there, for example. Might be a good idea. Because don't underestimate 30 pistols at the end of the day. Well, I suppose it's 29 pistols because one of the boys died earlier. But yeah, 29 pistols all shooting at one target with more Daka. I think it's worth a try. So that's the Orc movement phase done. Let's go to the shooting phase, and I tell you what, we might as well do this. Alright, here we go. Daka. 29 shots. Yeah. Okay, that's definitely a few Dakas in there. Not as many as I would have liked, though, honestly. But whatever. It's Orc shooting at the end of the day. Alright, here's the extra Dakas. Okay, yeah, another 4 hits. That's certainly not bad. Alright, now, wounded on 4s. Oh, hello. That's not bad at all. Yeah, that's really good, actually. So they're shooting at these Stern Guard veterans right in front of them, just for reference. Yeah. Alright. These are all going to be 3+ saves for the Stern Guard veterans. And they fail only one. The blessed power armor holds firm in the face of the Xenos onslaught. Only one of them takes a single wound, because of course, even the small Marines these days have 2 wounds each, which is great. Well, that was a little bit disappointing, if I'm completely honest with you. I might still let them charge, you know. I might still let them charge. Narratively, it feels right to me. They come screaming and charging out of that cave. And, yeah. I'll probably have some of the Marines overwatch by paying a command point for that, because that seems legit. But, yeah, I feel like I should let the Orcs charge, even though the mission rules say you shouldn't. I feel like I'm making an executive narrative decision here that maybe the Orcs should be able to get the charge just to keep this interesting, frankly. Anyway, I'll have a think about that. In the meantime, I think I'm going to have those Storm Boys shoot their sluggers at those scouts over there. So, well, the Storm Boys, as they came screaming and hollering down from the air, opened fire with their sluggers, and they killed a single scout among the group that they are targeting right now for a charge. And over here, these scouts, well, they had a good start, but perhaps through their inexperience, they got a little bit too close to the Orcs for the counterattack, and 3 of them have been shot down by the shooter boys over here, leaving only the sergeant with his shotgun and the heavy bolt gunner still standing. So, perhaps a little bit of an error there from the newbies. Now then, that brings us to the charge phase. And these shooter boys are absolutely going to be trying to charge these guys. The Storm Boys are going to be trying to charge these gents over here. And, well, as for what's going on over there, I think I'm going to leave this up to the dice gods. On the roll of a 1, 2, 3, the boys are too disorganised getting out of the cave to actually make an attempt at a charge. On a 4, 5, or 6, they come out of there screaming and ready for a fight. And they'll be able to charge all the Space Marines in front of them. So, the dice gods say no. The dice gods say I should follow the actual damn rules of the scenario and not change them on the fly. So, those Orcs are not going to be charging. However, these ones are, and these ones are. So, let's go ahead and do that straight away. These Storm Boys are going to need a 9-inch charge. Let me just remove these scouts, actually. Hold on. Okay, 9-inch charge. And we do have Here We Go, so we can re-roll any or all the dice. So 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we go. That's a 5. I mean, it's a bit cocked, but I'm going to go ahead and call that a 5. The Orcs could use the break right now. So, in go the Storm Boys. I will tidy that up in a second. Now, it's a 6-inch charge for these shooter boys, and I'm going to employ a little house rule here. This is a house rule that I've shamelessly stolen from Say Hi Paul. Go check out his channel. But basically, a character, if they're within 3 inches of a friendly unit that is charging, he can charge with them. We roll one charge roll for both the character and the unit, and they move in together as if they were one unit. They will obviously fight separately still, but they'll charge as one unit. Because what I don't want is the boys charging off to fight those scouts and the pain boy just being left standing there like a lemon, because that would be daft. So they will charge as one unit, and this, frankly, this is such a good rule. I mean, I'm sure GW probably considered it and decided not to because it could be exploited by cheesy players, but I'm not a cheesy player, at least I don't think I am. So I'm fine with it. So let's see, they need a 6. They do have Here We Go, but that is more than sufficient. That is a 7, so here we go, indeed. Alright, that's the charges done. I've done the pile-in moves as well, just for the sake of quickness and tidiness. Yeah, here we go. I don't fancy these scouts' chances. We'll see. We shall see. I'm probably going to roll an awful lot of this off camera because it's going to be a lot of dice. See, the funny thing is about shooter boys is even though they're shootier than normal orc boys, well, shootier than slugger boys, I mean, they are still orcs, which means they still do pack a bit of a wallop in close combat. They just don't get that extra attack from having a chopper. So I think these scouts are all incredibly dead. I'm going to roll for it anyway, but I think they're incredibly dead. If I was playing against another opponent, I'd probably, and I was the Space Marine player, I'd just remove those 2 scouts because there's no hope. But we'll see. You never know. And I don't think these guys' chances are much better either, but not quite as certain as that, I would say. So I'll be back in just a moment. Well, it went pretty much as I expected. I should mention, I suppose, really, though, that the 2 scouts over here, they only just died, which was interesting. After piling everything in, I could only get 20 attacks from these boys in, and the scouts only failed by 1 save, which is just tragic. I like to think it was the sergeant who just put up a heck of a fight trying to fend off all of these orcs by himself, but eventually was cut down and jumped on and murdered horribly. Over here, the Storm Boys did very much the same thing. In fact, the knob with the Power Claw really just walloped most of the scouts all by himself, actually. And they have now consolidated as well, looking to head towards them beakies over there with all the shiny gubbins on them. Yeah, they've consolidated towards the enemy, even though that's probably not super great of an idea, because you're just making it easier for the Marines to shoot you. They're orcs, though. That's especially Storm Boys. They're going to want to move towards the nearest thing to crump, regardless. It's just orcs, man. So, yeah. That charge over there didn't happen. The Dice Gods said no, but 2 scout squads over here eliminated by the orcs. Very nice. And of course, this is a game with kill points, so every unit you kill is definitely worth something, although of course the Marines are way ahead in the lead when it comes to that right now, but hey, it's something. And the Orcs, well, they just want a fight at the end of the day, don't they? They don't really care about things like kill points and completely eradicating the enemy. Nah, they just want to crump some stuff. And so far, these guys at least have been able to crump some stuff. So that's good. Right, let's see. There's no morale because we killed both those scout squads. And, yeah, that's it, really. That's it. We didn't take any casualties either in close combat because the scouts died so fast they couldn't even fight back. Did think about doing an interrupt as the Marine player, but I didn't think it was worth the 2 command points. So, all the forces on both sides are now committed to the battle, with the possible exception of the Orcs doing an endless green tide with one of their mobs of boys. We shall see about that. However, the battlefield spread out a bit more. The Marines were attempting to encircle and envelop the Orcs, and that, well, how the tables have turned. They seem to now find themselves slightly encircled and enveloped. Interesting. Maybe a slight strategic error on the part of the lieutenant. He is slightly new at this, after all. However, as we head into the Marines' command phase, of course, the orbital strike will land, probably kill a few Orcs. And the Marines will, of course, shoot back with their not inconsiderable firepower. So, yeah. Let's just say I wouldn't want to be an Orc boy right now, because what's headed their way is going to be, woo, nasty. So, here we go. Marines, turn 3. Battle round 3. Oh, and as we head into battle round 3, here's the other thing. Let's see what the temperature's like. That's a fun. Oh, it's gotten hotter. It's got even hotter now. So anything outside of 12 inches will have a -1 to hit. And I believe it's a minus... I think it's still a -1 to charges and -2 to advance rolls. So, okay. Right. Just realised, because of that -1 to charges, I think the Storm Boys might have possibly failed that charge back there. Let's just pretend they rolled a 10, yeah? Yeah, okay, cool. Alright, it's the command phase of the Space Marine turn, and I realised I did make a boo-boo earlier in the Orc turn, because I meant to use the Auspex scan stratagem for the Space Marines to get some shots off at those Storm Boys as they came in from the Scouts. But I forgot to do it. Let's put it down to the Scouts being a bit too inexperienced or something. However, it's the command phase, not the movement phase, because we have the Orbital Bombardment to resolve. Now, basically the way this works is we roll a d6 and we add 1 to the result if the enemy unit is within 3 inches of the marker instead of just 6, which is the case here. So, boobly boo, it's a 1, which becomes a 2, which means that the Orcs suffer d3 mortal wounds for 3. So, 3 boys. Let's take away the ones closest to the middle where the strike came in, shall we? They're just dead. They're just dead. They got caught in the lance strike, or perhaps some collapsing rock or something like that, but they're dead. It could have been d6 mortal wounds if I'd rolled a bit higher there, but never mind. Let's remove the little token thingy. Now the orbital strike is concluded, and right, crack on with the movement. Well, that movement phase was indeed pretty quick. Now, one other bit of admin to note actually is that I have elected to go into the assault doctrine for the Space Marines. When you get to round 3, you can choose whether or not you want to remain in tactical or go to assault. I'm going to go to assault though, because basically, as you can see, the lieutenant has formed up his brothers around him. They're going to let rip at point blank range into these Orcs, and then if there's any left alive afterwards, they're going to charge them and beat the snot out of them in close combat, which I'm sure the Orcs would very much enjoy, to be fair. But we're going to go into the assault doctrine because all these bolt rifles and special issue bolt guns already have plenty of armor piercing on them, and extra is just kind of wasted on Orc boys with their t-shirt saves, so what's that point? We're going into a, therefore, assault doctrine, which means that we all have an extra -1 AP in close combat, I think. Anyway. So, yeah, this over here is pretty self-explanatory. Up here, the 3-man intercessor squad and these veterans have grouped up, falling back away from those Storm Boys and Shooter Boys over there, wanting to maintain a little bit of distance, shoot them down from here. Although we've fallen back just enough now that we will be getting a -1 to hit because of the heat, because it did get hotter this turn. No such issues down here, of course, but, you know. So, that's the movement done. I think we're going to hop straight into the shooting, and let's go over here first. I think we're going to have these veterans shoot at those Storm Boys. So let's see. Let's start with the heavy bolter, with its -1. 3 hits regardless, though. Well done. And 2 wounds on the Storm Boys. The Storm Boys, well, actually, they don't get a save, do they? They have t-shirt saves. So yeah, that's 2 dead Storm Boys. Now, the rest of them. Getting dice out of my pocket. With their bolt guns. Actually, you know what? This is going to be 1 shot each, isn't it, from that range? Okay, so 3 shots. The sergeant's got a plasma pistol that's not in range, so that will be 1 hit 1 wound, and it's a special issue bolt gun, so that is a 3rd dead storm boy. Excellent. Now these guys here, who I'm gonna need to measure this up actually, because bolt rifles have a range of 15 inches, which is difficult to eyeball. Okay, measured it up. Only the chap at the front there is in rapid fire range with his bolt rifle. The other 2 are not. So 4 shots in total. Hitting on 4s. Rerolling that 1 because of bolter fusillades. I might have forgotten that with the veterans. Whoops. However, everything hits, and then wounding on 4s. So 2 wounds, -1 each. 2 more dead storm boys. Like so. Right. Yeah, they're going to have morale problems, aren't they, at the very least? Right, so. The Eliminators. The Eliminators. I think they are going to fire some hyper-frag rounds at these boys here. How many do we have? Is it more than 10? It is more than 10, yeah. And also, you need to be stood up properly. Thank you. So, that'll be... See, if I was feeling more professional, I might actually cut the recording here, but we're in the dying phase of the battle right now, and honestly, I cannot be bothered. Maybe I'll still do it in editing, in which case you won't hear this, but anyway, with the blast roll, that's 3 shots each. Hitting on 3s, because these guys are ballistic skill 2, as I discovered today. So that's a miss, the rest of them are fine. Wounding on 3s, because strength 5. Oh dear. Well, that's 4 wounds, and no AP on these hyper-frag rounds, so 6 up saves, 1 t-shirt save made. Does the pain boy save the other 3? No, he does not. 3 shooter boys bite the dust. And now at last we come to this. Potential execution by firing squad. Folks, these Marines are going to level their weaponry at the charging Orcs. The lieutenant levels his sword at them, gives the order to fire, and with an absolute howling blast, they all open fire at once, and a mere 7 Orcs remain standing, climbing across the bodies of their fallen chums. There's the pile over there. That was quite brutal indeed. Haven't quite killed them all though, so that concludes the shooting phase. It's charge phase time. I think at this point, Overwatch is a bit immaterial. I'm not going to actually though, because, well, if there's a chance somehow that one single boy or perhaps a knob can survive this, Endless Green Tide could still happen. So the Marines are all going to charge now, and you know, I think they're pretty much all in no matter what their role really here. So they're just going to do the charge. The Orcs have got 4 command points left in the minute, you see. So if one of these guys survives, you can the Orc Dave could play Insane Bravery to stop it from running away from morale, and then in the Orc turn, Endless Green Tide to bring the whole mob back. It's a bit of a stretch, but you never know. Anyway, I'll be back when we've charged into them. The charge has been made in short order, and now here come the attacks. Alright, the Lieutenant alone has just killed 4 Orcs with his mastercrafted power sword. Getting stuck in there. Now, as tempting as it would be to interrupt right now as the Orcs, the faint hope, does the faint hope really still remain there? There's 2 Orcs left and a knob. It's not going to happen, is it? If we're honest with ourselves, it's not going to happen. Not after the Lieutenant killed 4 of them. So, okay. In that case, because Orcs is never beaten, we're going to interrupt. So 2 command points being spent. The Orc boys over here will fight those Marines over there, and the knob is going to swing his big chopper at that Lieutenant. Alright, the 2 boys over here managed to bring down 1 intercessor between them. Well done, lads. Very good. And now we're going to do Strikey Boss Knob versus the Lieutenant. He has 3 attacks with his big chopper. 2 of them hit. He will wound on a 3. He he wounds once, and it's AP -1, damage 2. So 4 up save on the lieutenant, which he makes. There you go. The boss knob was not able to put a scratch on him. With his expert swordsmanship, he engaged the mighty brute, and summarily someone else felled him because I've already made my attacks. Oh, that's awkward. Awkward. Anyway, yeah. These guys would fight back. The sergeant alone would probably kill those 2 boys. Let's see. Okay, 3 hits. And 2 wounds. Within a start, he's chainsword, so it's AP -1. Therefore, both the boys are dead. And yeah, that is that entire mob wiped out. Well, with that last nail in the coffin, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to call it here for today. It'll go over to the Orc turn, and the Orcs for their part, well, the following will happen. This knob and his storm boys will go, "Zog it! This ain't worth sticking around, must be a better fight somewhere else. I'm not getting shot for nothing." So these guys take off and back off to somewhere else to find someone else to bully, basically. And these boys here, along with the pain boy, they'll probably leg it and try and make it to one of the cave entrances. Probably lose a few on the way to incoming fire from the Space Marines, but at least some of them, along with the pain boy, will probably make it into the tunnels, where they will then disappear. It was a bit of a one-sided affair, this. The Hearthguard of the Sons of Hades were uniquely well equipped to deal with this situation, actually, having all their sort of small arms, bolt weapons and stuff against a bunch of Orcs who were not able to bring any vehicles to the fray. If they had done, the Hearthguard would have been in some serious trouble. But at the end of the day, this is why the Hearthguard only have a limited supply of weapons, because they're not really expecting to deal with a horde of enemy vehicles on the homeworld anytime soon. However, I suspect that this was perhaps only a prelude. I suspect that somewhere elsewhere on the planet, there's a lot more Orcs that have made it to landfall than perhaps the Space Marines initially thought. And I reckon that some of the Orcs might have escaped into the tunnels below the surface, much like these guys will, but in much greater numbers, which means the Hearthguard are going to have to send their own troops down into the caves after them to try and track down the remaining Greenskins and destroy them before they can go down there, get lost in the catacombs, in the Underdark, and start multiplying again. And then, because if that happens, this planet is in serious trouble. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a victory for the Space Marines of the Sons of Hades. They did quite well today. This is probably only my second time playing with 9th edition Space Marines, and they've done quite well for themselves. The Bolt Fusillades thing was really, really good. I really like that. It fits for an Imperial Fist successor chapter, and it's just darn good too. It means they kick out some hurt with those small arm weapons of theirs, or at least they're more reliable, right? That's the thing. They're more likely to do some decent damage. And yeah, I like the fact that my firstborn Marines, I call them mini Marines, but they're supposed to be called firstborn Marines. I like the fact they've got 2 wounds now, along with the Primaris guys. That feels good to me. Yeah, no real complaints. No real complaints at all there. It's nice to see the poor Sons of Hades actually win for once, to be honest with you. They had a terrible track record in 8th edition when I used them. They were quite dreadful. They lost all the time. So it's nice to see them win for once. And actually, when I played them, the other game in 9th edition I played with them was against my Necrons, and they got completely wiped out fighting the Necrons. So again, this makes a nice change of pace. So, right. The Orcs, they've been beaten. But at the same time, we had a good fight, so it's okay. And yeah, they'll be back. They'll always be back. That's the nature of the greenskin, ladies and gentlemen. And as I said, I think there might be a follow-up to this battle as we head below the sands of Hades into the great caves to track down the remaining Orcs and make sure they don't escape us. But that will be another time, ladies and gentlemen. For now, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this solo 40k battle report. I know it's not ideal, but it's something at least. And yeah, if you want to see more like this, then absolutely do the like, comment, subscribe, ringy bell thingy, algorithm appeasing ritual. and I will endeavour to try and make more of these in the future. I've got quite a few ideas for different like campaigns and stuff I'd like to do using my different armies that I have. So yeah, thoughts are brewing in me old noggin, so to speak. And yeah, I've got ideas. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, everybody. Battle Mat is from urbanmats.com, I believe. These skull things are aquarium scenery terrain stuff that I got from Amazon. These big rocks here are from Urban Mats. The very Star Warsy building with the walls is from Urban Mats as well. The gravel is from, you know, an aquarium. It's aquarium gravel from Amazon. And this green lichen stuff that I got is from, I bought that from Element Games, I think. Oh, and these little rocks here, these are from GameMat.eu, I think, as well. There you go. I think that's all the shout-outs. Aside from the few boxes and crates and things that are from GW anyway. Right, thanks very much, everybody. Catch you in the next one.